Hey, it's Allison from Computers.mom, and one question clients ask all the time is, which Mac should I buy? So here's the Computers.mom guide to choosing the right Mac for your needs and budget, including tips on finding the best price. You can start investigating the various options here on Apple's website. First, choose Mac on the top bar, and you'll see the different product lines that are available. Right now, Apple offers two main laptop models, the thinner, lighter, cheaper, but less powerful MacBook Air, and the more powerful and more expensive MacBook Pro, which comes in several sizes. And there are four desktop options, the iMac and Mac Mini, and the very powerful and very expensive Mac Studio and Mac Pro. Those last two are primarily for professionals. Most regular people are selecting from these first four. Choosing the right Mac involves answering 8 questions. The first one is, does your computer have to be portable? Which is how you decide between a laptop and a desktop, because there's a big trade-off for portability. You'll pay more for a laptop with a smaller screen than a desktop with the same power. Even AppleCare is more expensive for a laptop. If you can live without portability, you get a lot more computer for the money. Now, most people assume that their only choice for a desktop from Apple is an iMac, which combines the computer itself with the monitor and has a separate keyboard and mouse or trackpad. But if you're in the market for a desktop Mac, you might also consider the Mac Mini, which is a whole computer in a small box like this. The disadvantage of the Mac Mini is that if you buy one, all you get is a box. That's the actual computer and a power cord. You have to add your own screen and keyboard and mouse and webcam. You have to know how to connect everything, and the end result is a lot messier looking, as you can see. But there are two big advantages to the Mac Mini. You can get the same power and storage as an iMac for a lot less money, and you can choose whatever display, etc. you want, including peripherals you already own. Note that the keyboard and mouse in this setup are from Apple, but the monitor is an inexpensive Dell. The iMac, by contrast, comes with pretty much everything you need built into one sleek package. So bottom line, if you're buying a desktop, the iMac is convenient and elegant, the Mac Mini is cheaper and more flexible. Once you've made that first decision about desktop versus laptop, you'll need to choose a model and size. Apple's least expensive computer, the MacBook Air, only comes in one size. If you want a laptop with a bigger screen or a little more power, you'll need to look at the more expensive MacBook Pro. On Apple's Mac webpage, you'll find this very handy Compare option. Here you can select up to 3 different computers and see exactly what the differences are side by side. Note that this list includes not only what is currently available for sale, but also older models, so you can see how your old computer stacks up. Let's compare the 13, 14, and 16-inch MacBook Pro, for example. An inch or two difference in the screen size might not seem like a big deal, but it is. For example, if we scroll down to the display section, you probably know that the screen is made up of dots called pixels, and the more pixels you have, the better the image will be. In this case, the 14-inch laptop has 40% more pixels than the 13-inch, and the 16-inch has 80% more. And you don't have to know what a nit is to see that the screens on the larger models are also much brighter. But there are trade-offs. The bigger laptops are much more expensive and a lot heavier. The 16-inch computer is more than 50% heavier than the 13-inch. A pound here and there might not seem like a lot unless you carry it around all day. So the Compare page lets you evaluate the options against your priorities, price, size, weight, and so forth. If you need the portability of a laptop, but you want a big screen and the comfort and flexibility of a desktop, one option is to add an external display and keyboard and mouse, or use a newer iPad as a second display. And if you just can't decide about the size, go to a store. Try the computers in real life. Question 3. How much storage space do you need? You can never have too much storage space, and like the other components, you can't normally increase the storage in the computer after you buy it. But it's also pretty expensive to add storage, so here's how to estimate how much you actually need. If you already have a computer, on the Apple menu, select About this Mac, and then click here on the Storage tab. Let's zoom in. The total available storage space on this Mac is 1 terabyte, or roughly 1,000 gigabytes, and just under 800 gigabytes is available. So simple subtraction tells us that I'm currently using about 200 gigabytes of storage for all my files, my apps, and the computer's operating system. You're likely to keep your new computer for a while, and you probably won't need less storage in the future, so add 50% to get a very rough estimate of your future needs on a new computer. Now we're up to 300 gigabytes. Keep in mind that you can't use 100% of the storage space. You need to leave about 10% free or the computer slows to a crawl. Let's add 10% to be safe, another 30 gigabytes or so our estimated total is 330 gigabytes. However, there's no such thing as a Mac with a 330 gigabyte hard drive. Storage is sold in fixed increments, 256 gigabytes, 512, 1 terabyte, and so on. And so in this case, we'll need to order a computer with a 512 gigabyte drive to be safe. Each time you double the size of your storage, you add several $100s to the price of the computer. So if your storage estimate is on the borderline, you'll have to decide between spending the money for more breathing room or spending time managing the storage space and keeping it cleaned out. Now that we have an idea of our storage needs, let's return to the compare page. There are three main components that determine how powerful a computer is: the CPU or processor, which is the brain of the computer, the GPU, which handles graphics processing, and the memory, which determines how many tasks this computer can be thinking about at the same time. People often confuse memory and storage, but they're separate. It's like the difference between remembering a phone number in your head, that's memory, and writing it down, which is storage. Storage is where your stuff is saved even when the computer is off. Memory is only active while the computer's on. Back to our compare page. You can see that the 13-inch MacBook Pro has lower specs than the other models. And where you see the words up to, those components can be upgraded, but the others can't. So if you want a more powerful CPU or GPU, you'll have to buy a bigger computer. If price were no object, we could max out all of these, but upgrading is expensive. You may not need more power now, but since you can't upgrade after you buy and you're likely to keep your Mac for years, buy as much power as you can afford. Otherwise, you'll likely just end up replacing the computer sooner. When choosing which components to upgrade, consider how you use your computer. A powerful CPU makes the whole computer run faster. More memory means you can be working on more stuff at the same time, and an upgraded GPU makes graphics tasks like editing photos and video or playing games run more smoothly. For most people, of these three, adding memory will give you the most bang for the buck. To see how this works, let's choose the 13-inch model and click Buy. Don't worry, we're not spending money yet. This is still just research. These two configurations have the same CPU and GPU. The only difference is the storage space and the price. Oh, and you can choose the color up here. That's easy to miss. Let's select the cheaper one and see what our options are. The only two components we can change at this point are the memory and the storage, and here you can select different options and see how they affect the price until you are satisfied with your choices. Make a note of all your selected options, the model, the processor, the memory, the GPU, and the storage for later. Next, we need to think about question 5, when to buy. Apple typically comes out with new models in each line every couple of years, so we want to avoid, if possible, buying right before a new model is announced. While Apple doesn't pre-announce their new models, there's a whole industry of Apple watchers who try to predict which models are due for a refresh. So before you buy, do a quick Google search like this, New Macs 2022, and see what the experts are saying on sites like Mac Rumors, Apple Insider, 9to5Mac, Cult of Mac, and so forth. If there's an Apple event coming up soon and you're not in a desperate hurry, it might pay to wait and see what's new. Question 6, color. Unless it changes the price, I have absolutely no advice here except to choose what makes you happy. Question 7, where and how to buy to save some money. Once you know the specs of the model you want, head over to appleinsider.com and look at their price guides. Make sure you're looking at the prices for the exact model and specs you want. You can always buy from Apple online or in the store, but you may find that the model you want is discounted at a major retailer like Amazon, Adorama, Best Buy, etc. Be aware that shipping costs and return policies may be different than Apple's, so do your homework. But let's go back to Apple because you may also be able to save money buying directly from them. Scroll to the very bottom of Apple's website to the fine print. First of all, you can use Apple's trade-in program to get credit for your old Mac against the purchase of a new one. You don't have to send in the old one until after you get the new one, but be aware that the trade-in value they offer you may drop when they receive it if it's not in great shape. You can learn all about how to do this in the video linked above. Second, back at the bottom of the page, if you have a connection to a school, a large company, or the military, you may have access to special discounts. Those links are in this column. Third, if you select Refurbished and Clearance over here, you can buy a refurbished computer directly from Apple with the same warranty as a brand new one. Choose Mac in the refurbished store, then choose your model on the left to see what's available. You can save some money this way, but the supply is limited, so you have to get a bit lucky. And be sure to check the specs carefully to make sure you're buying exactly what you want. The last thing you have to decide is whether you want to spend the extra money for AppleCare Plus, which is Apple's extended warranty. This isn't really a technical decision, it's more of an insurance question. Do you want to spend a bunch of money in advance in case you have a problem with your computer, or take your chances? Normally, experts recommend against extended warranties on electronics, but repairing a Mac can be so expensive if something does go wrong that it's worth considering. Note that you don't have to make the AppleCare decision when you buy the computer, and you don't have to buy the computer from Apple to have AppleCare Plus. In most countries, Apple will allow you to add AppleCare Plus to your existing computer within 60 days of purchase. Phew! That was a lot. Thanks for watching. Feel free to leave comments and questions below. Click like if you found this helpful, and be sure to subscribe for more Computers.mom videos.